Yeah. Charles, where is it? Where is the speech?
So the lecture will be for 1 hour.
Okay.
And then there'll be questions and answer.
Okay.
Probably maybe 30 minutes or even more.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right.
So kindly sit down. So welcome to the World Health Seminar, Nigeria in the World. It gives me great joy to introduce our distinguished speaker tonight. Before I formally introduce him, let me tell you, particularly for those who are visiting for the first time, what the Nigeria in the World Seminar is all about. I'm directing this new and timely initiative for the university's Weatherhead Center for International Studies. Its primary goal is to explore the current state of Nigeria's engagement with the world community. The Nigeria in the World Seminar serves as a forum for scholars, researchers, policymakers, and professionals to reflect on critical issues relating to Nigerian matters. The initiative focuses on strategic matters such as security issues, regional stability, economic development, intra-faith relations and dialogue, policies, human rights, justice, gender, etc. Its overarching objective is to bring Nigeria into dialogue with world issues. Another goal of this initiative is to attempt to spread awareness of Nigeria's intellectual and natural wealth, which has enabled its citizens or prevented Nigerians themselves from influencing and participating in global markets and social networks. Leaders of high caliber are participating in this initiative. We're glad to announce to you that we've had distinguished and eminent presenters, such as His Eminence, Alhaji Muhammad Saud Abubakar III, the Sultan of Sokoto, Ambassador Wada Currency, who is with us tonight, General Dambazwa, Dr. Mauzi Aliyu, Governor of Niger State, Professor Tokwe Ogumodede from OEU, Ambassador Campbell, among others. Such leaders will attest to the success of this initiative, and we hope that this regular conversation will lead to a comprehensive consideration of Nigeria's place in the broader and global economic world. And it also will give to this country a way of showcasing its potentials and influences in social and political activities of other nations around us. Governor Aregbesola is an accomplished engineer and an astute, bold, and courageous statesman. Similar to President Barack Obama, before his deport into the active political scene, Governor Aregbesola was an exceptional grassroots organizer and mobilizer. In public service in Lagos State, he served as the Commissioner for Works and Infrastructure under the then State Governor, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Aregbesola quickly proved himself to be a trusted, dependable ally to the governor, and is regarded today as one of the architects of the significant growth we see in Lagos that has transformed that city to a modern place. In December 2010, Governor Aregbesola took up the mantle of leadership in Osun State. Very soon afterward, he embarked on various social and economic projects to develop the state, particularly education, health, and agriculture. I'm sure he will elaborate on some of these vital issues in his speech tonight. In interacting with him during the past 2 months, I find him to be an unusually modest man in government, a person of ideas and action, a very engaging cultural philosopher, and a self-sacrificing politician. His concerns for the plight of the underprivileged are exceptional. We live in a country where it is increasingly hard to find genuine statesmen and women willing to serve with selflessness. Ogbeni Aregbesola has reported calling for celebration. I'm particularly keen on Aregbesola's interest in cultural matters and religious pluralism in Nigeria. He has embarked on a quiet revolution in cultural revival in his state by formulating an essential mechanism to practice and to maintain Yoruba indigenous values and ideals. His many speeches emphasize what in Yoruba thought is called Omoluwabi, defined as the essential character of personhood. It is clear to us that the potential of these cultural tenets has already translated into the social, economic of this region. It is my opinion then that these principles and habits will provide a foundation to promoting social justice and peaceful religious coexistence, along with our cherished values of honesty, discipline, integrity, and self-respect. I should add that Osun is a state with important, tangible cultural assets. Just 6 months ago, I was approached by a PBS filmmaker to advise him on which African religious traditions to film in their program on pilgrimage in world religions. Honestly, I could tell he wanted me to name a Christian church pilgrimage, a ceremony in maybe Southern Africa or Eastern Africa. I then asked if he had heard of the Osun Festival in Osogbo. That is one of the largest pilgrimage centers in world religions, I told him. I'm happy to inform you tonight that PBS will be in Osogbo this August to film the Osun Festival as part of the World Religion Film Project. This represents a step in rewriting the annals of world religions in the 21st century. Finally, on a personal note, though I'm not a native of Osun, I call the place my second home. as I have a very close relationship with many, many citizens of this great state, some of whom are here tonight. As a foremost Nigerian political leader, our guest tonight will provide a critical perspective on issues of governance, politics, and development in Nigeria. And so join me in welcoming Governor Ogbeni Aregbesola to Harvard.
That's the best. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It's so good and reassuring to have this unique opportunity to address an assemblage of intellectuals, accomplished diplomats, and several other successful people in Harvard. I want to particularly recognize the presence of Ambassador and Madam Walter Carrington. Thank you for your presence. It's pleasing to be in this world-renowned institution, Harvard University, and to stand before the highly esteemed academics that are here. I'm grateful to the Weatherhead Center of International Affairs and Professor Jacob Olupono for the privilege of this invitation. Every modern society is a reflection of the modernity of intellectual institutions, with its endless production of world-class scholars who have brought their sterling expertise to bear on governance and policy formulation. This great university has been at the frontier and cutting edge of the political, economic, and technological modernization of American society. The gown is truly in tandem with the town. I am conscious of the wisdom shared with you by my illustrious compatriots who have preceded me on this same podium. And by these I mean His Eminence Alhaji Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar III, the Sultan of Sokoto. Though not mentioned, but I understand too that the Governor of Lagos, Babatunde Fashola, had been here, and several others. As political leaders and politicians, our own task is to seek to govern. Therefore, my task is fairly simple because I'm here to address you on the challenge of development in my country, Nigeria. Happily, this happens to be an area within our purview, as the task of engendering development in the society falls squarely on the shoulders of its leaders. Development is one subject that has engaged the attention of scholars, statesmen, international organizations, and political leaders. I do not wish to detain this august gathering on the proper definition of this subject. I will, however, take it as given that Nigeria is a developing country, insofar as the extant parameters of income per capita, life expectancy, the rate of literacy, and so on are very low compared to countries designated as developed. According to the 2010 World Bank data on Nigeria, the gross national income per capita is $1,380, while life expectancy is 52. I mean 52 years. And only 43% of the population has access to safe water. United States, the country in which I'm talking now, in contrast, as a developed country, has a gross national income per capita of $48,650. Life expectancy is 78, and 94% of its population has access to water, good water. These figures, however, are tools of analysis by economists. The real fruit of development are the strength of state institutions for law enforcement, transportation, economic production, defense, knowledge production, arts, entertainment, and cultural, national power and projection. I think the term developing as applied to some countries is a euphemism because the appropriate term should have been underdeveloped. Developing suggests that a nation is in transition, moving towards development in a kind of metamorphosis with visible and undisputable sign. However, on the contrary, some of these countries are in reverse development, and the only visible growth about them is the human population. Developing, then, should translate to at least visible signs that certain measures are in place that are making parameters like the gross national income and life expectancy to be rising. The challenge of development, therefore, is how a nation strengthens its institutions and mobilizes its human resources to produce fruits, not necessarily on the scale of the United States of America, but on that which will guarantee the good life for its citizens. The challenge of development in Nigeria has varied dimensions, which have been copiously written and widely talked about. Hence, I will only be adding my voice to an already large body of materials, but with a perspective that derives from my own experience as a public policy maker in the Nigerian state of Osun. For us to be able to get out of our present predicament, we must understand where we came from and how we got there. In order to do this, we must begin from the beginning. Hence, it is well worth repeating the overemphasized point that the foundation for Nigeria's underdevelopment was laid in its colonial history. Nigeria was a cultural, linguistic, and religious congery of diverse peoples. It was amalgamated, ruled, and administered for the convenience and in the interest of the colonial overlords, with little consideration for the good of the peoples therein. It was therefore the case that at independence, what was handed over as a country was such a political and administrative liability that its consequences soon began to haunt and hurt its human constituents. These consequences were such that they operated to hamper the country's capacity to leverage its widely acclaimed huge potential for development. The numerous dimensions of our development challenge have been amply articulated, but for my purpose, here I will identify the following. 1, education. I mean to say ethnicity, not education. Ethnicity. Nigeria from the start has been a heterogeneous mix in terms of its cultural, linguistic, and ethnic makeup. A reality that necessitated the need to create unity out of diversity. However, the cruel realities of colonial rule fostered the politicization of ethnicity. The internal disarticulations engendered by colonial rule among the country's inheritance and the manner of granting independence ensured a preference for the political mobilization of ethnicity to secure political power. It was, for instance, never in doubt that the British favored a section of the country and its elite as successors and did everything possible to ensure that the reins of power were handed over to this group at independence. And that fact was known to several people, even the constituent ethnic nationalities. This served to entrench antagonism and suspicion among the different ethnic groups in the country. I was discussing this afternoon with Ambassador Carrington. He mentioned this particularly. And created an atmosphere where the specter of ethnic domination became a national obsession. This has worked to focus governance efforts not on development, but on how to achieve or preserve advantageous power positions for the ethnic groups. This has been the case to date. Federalism. The attendant issues and inherent problems of a multi-ethnic society are supposed to be settled or at least mitigated through the institutional mechanism of federalism. However, the ways and manner in which our federal practice has played out has compounded the problems of our diversity rather than resolve them. The unwieldy federal structure handed over by the British and retained by our inheritance elite made for an unbearable political burden under which the First Republic eventually collapsed. As Rotimi Suberu and Larry Diamond pointed out, and I'm quoting, the First Republic labored under immense structural strains largely induced by the British colonial legacy. Instead of having coordinate units working together, Nigeria has been run as a federation of unequal units with inbuilt potential for instability. In the days of regionalism, one of the regions, the North, was configured to swallow the two others put together, thereby making Nigeria a mobile federalism from the very start. According to the law of federal stability advanced by J.S. Mill in his considerations of a representative government, one part of the federating unit must not be so powerful as to be able to vie in strength with others combined. And when the regions were broken up into states, the latter were little more than appendages of the center, and they still are. In essence, Nigeria's federalism has moved from what was described as the regional dogs wagging the federal tail to a situation where the federal dog has been wagging the state's tail. The problematic imbalances in the country's federalism have made the federalism scholar, John Ayoade, to ponder whether, and I'm quoting, the Nigerian Federation was a design error or an error by design. The peculiar type of federalism we run continue to pose serious challenges to our society as a country to make meaningful development impact in the lives of our people through the other federating units that are closer to the people than the center. Military rule. When the military force came to power in our country, it raised a false hope that it would serve as a bridging force and a force for stability for society. Given its imperative of centralized command and control, organizational discipline, and internal cohesion, but it soon became very clear that the Nigerian military was much less united than assumed. The military, in fact, came to reflect and reproduce the ethnic cracks and fissures within the society, such that amongst its personnel, in the words of A.R. Lockham, I'm quoting, interpersonal trust was lacking, and the situation became increasingly defined in primordial categories of interaction like tribe and region. End of quote. The eventual breakdown of the army along ethno-regional lines culminated in the Civil War of 1967 to 1970. It is still in doubt whether that institution has recovered from that affliction. The military supposedly intervened in the nation's politics, in order to correct the problems confronting the polity which the civilian rulers could not manage. However, the military proved to be more of a compounding factor in the country's development woes, and indeed, it was the military that effectively changed our federal practice into de facto unitarism. They progressively strengthened the federal government, starting with the breakup of the fairly strong regions into weakling states that have little more than capacity to pay salaries of their workers. Worse still, military rule in Nigeria has enthroned and embodied everything that was antithetical to the development of the country. Destructive dictatorship, repression of opposing but qualitative inputs into the political process, institutionalization of pervasive corruption, devastation of the economy, spread of mass poverty, alienation of the population, militarization of the polity, and perpetuation of division in society are some of the damages inflicted by the military rule on our country. In his A Radical View of Nigeria Political Development, Julius Inobere came up with the damning verdict form. For him, he says, and I'm quoting, military rule closes existing democratic spaces, promotes psychophancy and mediocrity, encourages waste and corruption, and more importantly, encourages political arrogance, intolerance, and general undemocratic attitudes. The advent of the military in the Nigerian politics has done a major disservice to the nation's political development. In this sort of performance record, Shivawolo had to conclude that the worst civilian regime was better than the best military government. Religion. Apart from language, culture, history, and geography, faith is an inherent feature of our diversity as a nation. And I said yesterday somewhere that we have more religion than God-fearing in our country. I mean, there must be a separation of religion and God. I don't know whether I'm understood here. The three major religions in the country are Christianity, Islam, and traditional religion. You have some smattering of atheists, but those are the three major religions. As a very strong element of our diversity, faith permeates the archetypes of our people and exerts a powerful influence on their existence and outlook on life. Faith on its own is not so problematic. But when it is mixed with politics, it can be a very lethal combination and dangerous. The report of the murderous activities of a religious group in the north, Boko Haram, has been disturbing, fueling pessimism on the fate of the country. What has been projected about the group is its religious face. This, regrettably, is a misreading of the situation. It is essentially the manipulation of religion to achieve certain political ends. There is nothing religious about Boko Haram. Unfortunately, the politicization of religion has been a persistent characteristic of our national existence, with its attendant challenge to our development efforts. Years of misrule has made religion a handy tool for the manipulation of our people by the ruling elite. I should like to dwell a bit on the effect of this on the northern part of the country, where it has been most potent. The orgy of mindless violence that we have been witnessing in recent times in the north is a culmination of this sort of manipulation, and it has far less to do with Islam and far more to do with the deplorable material condition of existence of the people. It is therefore no accident that those parts of the north where the raging campaign of terror has originated and festered have also been the worst hit by chronic unemployment, grueling poverty, and hideous lack of education. And these are the incendiary materials for the kind of explosion that has been happening, particularly in that region. available statistics clearly show that this part of the country to be the lowest of the low in terms of human development indices. For far too long, the northern ruling elite has employed religion to enthrone and foster a regime of privation, penury, and destitution among the masses of the people. When you subject a people to a combined assault of poverty and unemployment, and deny them the mitigating factor of education in the sense of carefully nurtured and cultivated intellect that can be rationally applied to deal and cope with existential challenges, what you have and what you are doing is to systematically breed monsters that will constitute menace to society. So we have to situate the crisis in the northern part of Nigeria in this context. Religion without education is a very potent way to disempower the people. It is to deprive them of hope and aspiration to make something meaningful out of their lives. Used only as an instrument of subjection and subjugation, without helping to address the material needs and aspirations of the people, religion will ultimately lose its relevance. The prevailing economic disempowerment of women in this part of the country in the name of religion can only lead to unpleasant social consequences. For to deprive a society of half of its productive forces is to economically cripple that society and stemming its prospect for development. It is absolutely inconceivable that a society will make its female constituents unproductive and be economically viable for the long haul. It's impossible. If, as history furnishes us, women were allowed to participate in the wars to expand the frontiers of Islamic faith, it is only logical that women be allowed to partake in the drive to expand the frontiers of economic production. To do otherwise, as it presently obtains in the North, is unarguably un-Islamic. The survival of the faith, no less, so the survival of the society and the country at large, is tied to its capacity to generate wealth. Now, leadership question. For me, by far the most challenging dimension of our development problem is that of leadership. Our inability to overcome other identified obstacles to development in the country, including the historical tragedies of colonialism and the slave trade, are a function of leadership failure. As formidable a challenge to development as the colonial heritage is, its persistence and resilience can only be put down to a conscious choice on the part of the country's leader not to change it. At any rate, there has been the intervention of time, and we can no longer blame colonialism for our woes after 53 years of independence. It doesn't even make sense at all. Yes, colonialism determined the trajectory of our development in the 60s, but we could have changed that since then. Again, the pervasive underdevelopment of Nigeria can be used to illustrate the crisis of leadership in the country. The Nigerian ruling elite has tended to be smugly accustomed to maintaining a lifestyle that is disconnected from economic productivity. The elite is parasitic and dominant, first no. Aided by its long hold on political power at the center, this has in turn furthered the view of the state and public office as a means of wealth acquisition. Thus, the situation is typical of Claude Ake's insightful observation about the country. And he says, wealth is tendentially dissociated from effort, from productive capitalist enterprise, with the fact that it has deprived Nigerian capitalism of its competitive and developmental impetus. End of quote. Any developmental effort that tends to take away their privileges is sure to have a shock and awe impact on a culture of indolent wealth acquisition. The point being made here is that leadership crisis is the basis of the violent eruption in the north and similar occurrences in other parts of the country. This, however, is not peculiar to the north. In manifestation, it is the north today, but in reality, it's not peculiar to the north. Other parts of the country are embroiled in varying degrees of violence and will soon catch up with the north, except effective leadership emerges at the national and local levels. Hence, what Nigeria requires above all is leadership. This is visionary leadership that is conscious of its mission, leaders whose convergence of interest and internal solidarity and cohesion will cross-cut societal cleavages, leaders who will be able to establish effective hegemony over the society and break the nation out of the vicious circle of misery and underdevelopment to the virtuous circle of development and progress. The need for leadership in our country is so stark that there is little disagreement about it. Dr. Muazu Babangida Aliyu, when he came here, the governor of Niger, affirms this unassailable fact in his speech, both here and at the Chatham House last year. He contended, indeed, surmounting the challenges of today's world, and I'm quoting him, will require leadership with a moral compass, character, vision, integrity, and courage to take difficult decisions to enhance socio-economic development, irrespective of whose interest is at stake. End of quote. That difficult decisions required to enhance socio-economic development in Nigeria must necessarily include addressing the structural imbalances in our polity, particularly with regards to our federalism. This will liberate the state from centrally imposed encumbrances and enable the people to enjoy the full benefits of good leadership. A major challenge of leadership in Nigeria is the institutionalization of a fair and legitimate process of political contestation through which genuine leadership emerges. Notwithstanding that there has been 4 cycles of election of a 4-year term since Nigeria final return to civil rule, it is still very difficult to have free and fair elections in which choices are freely made and the people's votes count. This is the biggest problem of post-military Nigeria, from which every other problem derives. Leaders that do not derive their legitimacy from the electorate will not be subject to their control and will not likely take policy options that are acceptable to them. Secondly, in the process of manipulating elections to impose a particular, usually an unpopular leader, certain institutions will have been compromised or emasculated with the consequences that will reverberate long after the dust of election are settled. For instance, a judge that was compromised at the election petition tribunal can also be compromised in civil and criminal suits after the election. Law enforcement agencies that were used to rig elections will be handy to silence protests emanating from politically robbed citizens. The possibilities are endless. I'm one of the very few fortunate ones that were able to assume their mandate after winning popular elections. But this was after almost 4 years of exactions and legal fireworks. I was persecuted and unjustly incarcerated for standing up to demand for my mandate. Our state was under virtual siege while our supporters were killed, hounded into exile, and jailed on spurious charges. We were not deterred. We confronted the terror of the Nigerian state, and against all odds we triumphed. I believe the international system can help better by taking more than passing interest in Nigerian elections. And I want to pause a little here to tell us what we are trying to say. if we can have a credible, transparent electoral process in Nigeria, we will have solved by half the leadership crisis confronting the nation now. If international observers, foreign governments and organizations can help to enthrone a regime of free and fair elections, they will have fewer interventions to make in Nigeria's affair. Politics is the father and mother of development. We have the lesson of history that no nation can climb the ladder of development without getting its politics right. It's difficult, if not impossible. I cannot end this piece without mentioning the impact of globalization and global capitalism on the development effort in Nigeria. One visible impact of Western popular culture as expressed in entertainment and lifestyles is the swamping of indigenous culture and erosion of values. In the West, the values that drive innovation, enterprise, and production are separate from the popular culture. However, when this popular culture is a developing country, it took over the youth and disconnects them from their own culture and its value that promote innovation, enterprise, and production. large swaths of young people have been disconnected from the values in their own culture that predispose them to development and have been left disoriented. We discovered this after my inauguration. And one of our first acts in office was to start a campaign of mental reawakening. We call it rebranding, by reminding our people of whom they were and of their past greatness. Our people were virtuous, and we told them so. And these virtues manifest in course of chivalry, hard work, and ability to triumph over vicissitudes and challenges. We have to provide this mental infrastructure at the very beginning of our administration as a foundation before we can begin to build the superstructure or development on it. And we are happy it's yielding fruit. We have a society or a people committed to supporting our program and following us. However, global capitalism with free movement of goods and services is killing the local industrial capacity, taking jobs from people and creating an army of malcontents. Agriculture, particularly for food and industrial raw material, has been under siege. It has become far more profitable to trade in goods manufactured in Asia and other parts of the world than to engage in industrial production. Other consequences of unbridled capital, like debt peonage and capital squeezed by the West, have indeed arrested development and helped to foster large-scale poverty. We have the lesson of history on this, that we cannot really be rich when we are surrounded by poverty. I must enter a caveat here, that outsiders are not responsible for our condition. That's not what I'm saying. Even if they have played some roles in it, we must take responsibility for our underdeveloped state and work out our own salvation. Nigerians have to create the right leadership for themselves, who will mobilize them for development. So I want to go to the leadership in Osun, the state in which I now govern. Permit me here to share with you how we have surmounted some of the leadership challenges we faced when our administration was inaugurated on the 27th of November 2010, after 3.5 years of titanic legal struggle. We discovered that the greatest challenge facing our people is job, that is unemployment, particularly of the youth. And within 100 days, we created 20,000 public sector jobs in what looks Keynesian. Nobody believed us when we said it at the campaign, that 100 days after our inauguration, we will create 20,000 public jobs. But we did. This should not sound strange. I'm abreast of the literature that put job creation largely in the public sector purview. However, for developing countries at this critical stage intervention of this nature is very necessary. But I digress. I must let you know that this intervention reinflated the economy of our state with immediate impact on every sector. Again, I want to pause to tell you what I mean here. What we were giving to the youth that we put together on these 20,000 jobs was only enough to keep their body and soul together, while confronting or embarking on public works from sanitation to construction of schools, control of traffic and what have you. But that's not where I'm going. Where I'm going is the fact that these allowances that they receive will go to strengthen the woman selling, well, I don't know what to call akara in English. Bean cake is the closest to it. Selling akara. And such little things that these youth will need to keep their body and soul together. So the money goes directly to the economy, expanding it and strengthening it. The policy was so successful that the World Bank commended us, asked to understudy it, and immediately recommended it as a model of youth engagement and mass employment for other states and the federal government. As part of our education reform, and starting from next month, we are introducing an iPad-like computer tablet which we call Okpoimo. Okpoimo means, in English, tablet of knowledge, which is a smart electronic teaching aid to our secondary school students, to our senior secondary school students. This tablet is preloaded with 17 subjects that are taught in our schools in Osun, for which students offer in their final West African Senior Secondary School Certificate examination in the form of lesson notes and textbooks. It also contains 6 extracurricular subjects in sex education, civic education, Yoruba history, Yoruba traditional religion, Ifa, computer education, and entrepreneurship education. I have a copy of it here. I want to show you. Where is it? Also, to be included in it is 10 years past questions and answers to be provided by Joint Admission and Matriculation Examination Council. Let me repeat that. Also to be included in it is 10-year past questions and answers supplied by Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB, and the West African Examination Council, WAEC. That is, the tablet comes with 54 textbooks on 17 subjects being offered in the final in high school, and we equally create what we call virtual learning environment, in which the student holding this will have direct tutorial lessons from their teachers. The tablet has bridged the gap of carrying books in sacks. That is, one thing it does clearly is to eliminate the backpack. They are wear and tear and subsequent replacement, and also provides ready learning tools anywhere and everywhere. With it in your hand, wherever you are, you can study. You can test yourself. You can engage in tutorials with your teacher. Okpoimo neither has internet connectivity nor does it interface with other devices in order not to distract the students. Yesterday, a professor engaged me on this when I told him that part of learning is interaction, internet connectivity, and I told him, Mr. Professor, much as your position is admirable, the truth is, from where we are coming from, should we make the mistake of allowing students to have internet access, we will have destroyed the purpose and objective of this. We are supplying this with solar charger because of our own peculiar circumstance. We don't have the benefit of constant power supply as we have here. So to ensure that power supply will not be a limiting factor for the use of this, we are supplying communal solar charging system that will allow students continuous usage of this wherever they are. Through this initiative, the state government seeks to expose pupils of its senior secondary schools to information technology at an early age. Our investment in computer for secondary school pupils was born out of our conviction that the future belongs to the digital age, and it will be disastrous if our youth are not prepared for this. The computer has become the center of the universe, whether it is in mainframe, desktop, laptop, handheld as telephone, or palm top. In addition, we have commenced the construction of 100 elementary schools, each with capacity to accommodate 900 students, 50 middle schools, each with capacity to accommodate 900 students, and 21 high schools, each with the capacity to accommodate 3,000 students. But before you start blaming me for how do you manage 3,000 students? The high school will be a school complex of 3 schools in one. Each of the 3 schools accommodating 1,000 students. We are the only state providing free meals for elementary pupils in grades 1 to 4. And we give free uniforms to all pupils in public schools, 750,000 of them. Our agricultural development program is ambitious. We established Osun Rural Enterprise and Agriculture Program. We call it ORIP. We try to play on acronyms that could motivate people. So our youth empowerment scheme is called OYES. Our school feeding system is called O-Meals. Agricultural intervention is called ORIP. A multi-ministerial program that shadows the Ministry of Agriculture, local government, youth development, works and finance. This program has provided at the last count about 15,000 direct jobs in crop farming, fishing, apiary, poultry, beef chain, and related industries. Our target is to capture 15% of the huge daily food market in Lagos and the Southwest. Yesterday I said 10% of Lagos, but when you join Southwest to it, 5% is enough for us. In our drive to change the lot of our people, we are propelled by the singular idea that effective leadership is the surest and quickest path to development. Overcoming our development challenge is not as impossible as it has seemed over the years. What has been missing is leadership. And this is what we are determined to provide for our people. We are convinced that by giving good leadership to the people, we will inspire them to rise to the challenge of developing themselves and their society. We subscribe to the wisdom of late President Ronald Reagan, and I want to quote him, that the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. I thank you. for giving me your valuable time.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Pleasure.
I'm sure we have questions, issues, comments to make, and I hope you're going to engage in critical, serious conversation that I know he's up to it. I saw him yesterday. So we'll be taking sets of questions. So we'll probably just take about 3 at the same time, and then give him the chance to respond, and then we'll come back again, and so we'll see what happens. So we'd like to devote the next 30 minutes to questions and answers. You did it, right?
For me, King Cooking. You need to write too. Femi, let me get it. Give me a pen.
That's okay. I have.
You have one pen,
Yes.
okay. Take. Sure.
Okay, the first question.
Thank you, Governor, for that very insightful and piercing speech. I was really impressed and motivated. I was there yesterday, and when you filled out all the things you've done, I just beat my chest and said, we are on the path to development, and I see light at the end of the tunnel for the first time. I'm from Osun State, and each time, I've been in the US for about 3.5 years, and each time my dad tells me he's going home. Every month, in the last 1 year, he has been going home. Now I know why he goes home every month. Thank you so much. My question is, in terms of engaging, Osun citizens around the world, I believe so much in knowledge, circulation, and I know your government is actually tapping effectively from, the waters abroad. So I don't know if you have a strategy, towards engaging Osun citizens, in diaspora, and if there is a strategy, what's the, how do I put it now? What's the, what ways and mechanisms do you have in place to make sure that the strategy, is achieved?
Thank you. Second question.
Thank you, Mr. Governor, and every other people present. I'm Professor Adepone Labatoloki from Capital Community College, Hartford. I'm actually an indigenous of Osun, so I'm from Osogbo. And I've been closely monitoring the administration of Governor Rauf Aregbesola for the past 2 years, or 2.5 years, so to say. And what's really made me to pick very good interest in his administration is the way, because when this administration came on board, they inherited monumental budget deficit. So the economy was at the brinks of collapse. So what he did, he actually tactically slowed the formation of his cabinet. So that really generated public outcry. And in other words, he was trying to save money. So for a couple of months, he didn't set up his cabinet. So what he did was to establish OYES. That is Osun Employment, Youth Employment, Empowerment Scheme. So he did OYES, and he was able to employ 20,000 people or youths. So what that did, the money that the OYES people, the cadets, are collecting, the money is going back direct to the economy. What that did is that was able to activate the economy. That stimulated the economy. So I commend you for that initiative. That is number one observation. That really made me to be secret admirer from that time. Wait, you know what? since that time, wait, one second, please. Okay, the question is really the issue of Boko Haram insurgency, because he highlighted some of the problems militating against the development of Nigeria. So one of the main problems is kleptocratic leadership, corruption, has been the bane of Nigeria development. Even though we have more, but there is little or no indices of modern development. But he said something about Boko Haram and Boko Haram insurgency. So what are we really doing in Nigeria? Because I'm baffled. I read Nigerian newspaper every day, killing here and there. Safety of lives and property is the primary purpose of any responsible government, and we are losing sight, of our obligations to provide security. So the Boko Haram is how do we establish the state police? That's where I'm going. How do governors, all the governors, try to talk to the federal government to encourage federal government to establish state police, even if they can't give us the state police? How do we go about the regional police? If every state is not financially buoyant to establish state police, let us have regional police. The Southwest, the Lagos State. That is fine. Yeah, so I want to really advise, or maybe let Mr. Governor advocate on behalf of we poor indigents, and advocate on our, articulate on our behalf to really see to the establishment of regional police. So that even if they can't do that,
we have a tradition here. We have a tradition. It's absolutely important to us. You keep your question pretty brief.
I'm sorry.
If it's a comment, just 2-3 sentences. Okay. So let's take the third question, then I'll ask I will ask Benny to respond. One more question. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Lohan Zakaria from UK, Scotland. I'm here for visiting fellow at law school. This is the third time I will see the governor physically, but I do believe that he will recognize my presence. I think you've said many things, but what's really important to me is law enforcement in Nigeria, and particularly in the States. Whenever I go to Nigeria or any of my children, they're afraid of armed robbery and so on and so forth. So what is the strategy you put in place to curb this problem? Thank you.
First of all, the two of the three questions are very similar. It's about security. The only one that is not strictly so is how do we engage the diaspora for the benefits and advantage of our people. I used to say this: without the engagement of diaspora, I won't be here. There was no way Harvard would have known me. But for positive engagement with Professor Olupono. So, honestly speaking, what is relevant here is a statement credited to Kennedy, J.F. Kennedy. Don't wait for what your country can do for you. Do whatever you can, give back to your country. I will want to advise us all that if we believe that with the myriad of problems we face on a daily basis in Nigeria, a government will be seeking out people who have capacity and skills elsewhere to help. It will be difficult. We have a state website active. We have several openings for engagement that I want our diaspora people to please freely use to contact us. And I'm happy that you are here, like several others. Engage us through our aides and really, through us for the use of technology to maintain regular contact. Outside that, I don't see how I can engage our people the way most of us think we should engage. I want to assume that I've not offended any sensibility. I'm just being factual. Security. my paper dwells very much on what I think is the base of this security. Because if every Nigerian is a policeman, and the inequality that we have today persists, there will be tension, there will be crisis, there will be instability, there will be insecurity. No number of policemen can keep down a large pool of hungry people. It's just impossible. So we must all come to terms with the root of the crisis we are facing. There is abject poverty. And yet, you have a few group of Nigerians rolling in wealth and opulence. That mix will breed insecurity any day, anywhere. We must even thank our stars that it took this long for us to have the manifestation we are having. So, and I want to illustrate with my example, with my own experience. When we assumed office on the 27th of November 2010, by the following week, we put up an advertisement for volunteers to participate in the OES scheme. The OES scheme was advertised to be a volunteer scheme where participants will sweep road, clean gutter, and do all sorts odd, cut vegetation by the road, and all such odd assignments. Lo and behold, we received applications from 250 graduates of tertiary institutions, 250,000 for 20,000 vacancies, 250,000 above. When you do the mathematics of that, we could only take 8% of the total number of the applicants of high-class citizens with college diploma. That tells you how serious the issue of unemployment, youth on unemployment is. In every society, the most productive, the most vibrant, the most potentially violent group are the youth. So where you now neglect them and you don't care about them, what type of police can put them in check? I mean, I don't know. I want to know what police system can repress such a bustling energy from exploding. I don't know. Much as I agree with you on the issue of state police, I do agree. But beyond that is the need to settle the economic challenge we have with a large army of unemployed youth. And it's worse in the north. Why? It's worse because over time, a wrong reading has been had on religion. I'm a Muslim, and proudly so. Islam does not say that women should be abused and denied economic activities or engagements. I've read the Quran in and out. I've read the tradition of the Prophet. I have not found any section there that says women must not work. So if half of the population of an area is made indolent by whatever means, and the working group, half of them again, don't even have hand enough to feed themselves, and there's no social safety net to take care of the situation, what do you expect? An explosion. And that's what we're having today. And I believe if we do not address that, we'll be chasing the shadow. But I agree with you. I agree with you on the state police. Lukman Zakaria, law enforcement strategy. Strategy is economic. But if you want to hear from me what we are doing in spite of all our efforts in Osun, yes, as indigent as we have this is sickening. It's not even a thing we should proudly say. Let me be quiet about it. We have improved on security apparatus, and I'll just leave it at that for correctness.
All right, 3 additional questions. Iyabo. Yeah. And then Yezaro. And one. Okay.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that wonderful presentation on the problem. I have, you had mentioned that the federal system isn't working, and I totally agree with that. But also, I do believe, I wonder if some states are actually viable if we do run a true federal system. And I think that I think we should run a true federal system, but how will these states that don't seem viable now generate enough internal funds to actually survive? And if we're to run a true federal system, shouldn't we critically look at the division of the states and see what the economic viability of them are? It's just a question. I wonder if you have some thoughts on it.
Okay, I know that.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for coming. My name is Aminu from the law school. I was tweeting the whole presentation, and I must tell you that the people online are also very happy with the things you are saying. I am from Bauchi, so I'm from the north, and I grew up in Maiduguri, so I guilty as charged. I think most of the issues you raise, I think you have articulated the problem of the north actually much more than I think any governor will ever do, because we are living in this denial, and in a way also having different conspiracy theories to explain our problems.
Thank you. But
we all exist as a country, and I was thinking of moving to Oshobo. What exactly are you doing? Apart from being a governor of your state, you are also a Nigerian. Collectively, what are the governors doing? This is a national problem. And as you rightly pointed out in your presentation, what started in the north, actually, if not addressed, can consume the whole country. So, I mean, what are you doing, first as a Muslim, because the problem is associated as in Islam, as a politician, as a leader, and as a Nigerian. And I think we have to view the problem not just as a northern phenomenon, but as a national problem that each and every one of us really has to be worried about.
The third question? Yeah? Yes, go ahead. You have a question? Then go ahead.
Okay. Your Excellency, your solution to the Nigerian problem was summarized as credible leadership. And of late, the opposition parties in Nigeria, which you were part of, came up with, they are proposing a new party as a solution, as part of the solution. But something is missing: politics of ideology. And my question is this: looking at what you and other opposition parties are trying to do in Nigeria, what is the assurance that it won't be what G34 that led to PDP that has put Nigeria in the very shameful state that it is today, that this new party that you are talking about will also take us there? That's my question. Thank you.
My sister, I deliberately refuse to recognize you so that I will not create problem with others that are here. But you deserve recognition. Anyway, so I thank you for coming. I thank you for coming. Federalism. How do we ensure that it's genuine? I want to believe that's your question. And that bearing in mind the weakness in the present structure of federating units, because I'm paraphrasing you, because very many of the federation units are unviable. So how then do you define genuine federalism? I want to believe that's your question. It's so simple. One, we are yet, if you listen carefully to me, I didn't say that we are in a democracy. I said we are in a civil rule. Because there's a difference between a democratic space and a space in which civilians are just allowed to rule themselves with a large dose of military superintendence. I don't want to go into specifics. But on federalism, I agree with you that there is no way we can have effective federal system with the miniature unviable constituents we have today. It's impossible. I agree with you. There is no gainsaying it. It's valid. And it is in our consciousness and understanding of that some of us are pushing vigorously for regional integration. I don't know if you have been following my comments on it. I'm one of the people pushing for the integration of states with geographic contiguity, cultural affinity, and traditional and customary relationships. That it is only through that we can indeed have a viable federal structure. And if there was I had a talk in the University of Ibadan in which I said I would be willing to surrender my governorship title for that to come about. Because, as I said in the paper, how many of the states can really do anything beyond payment of salaries? And what is the percentage of salary earners to the population? They are less than 2%. So if 2% of the population takes all that's allocated to a state, what do you have left? You have chaos. You have anarchy. Because there is no way you can justify 2% of the population, or maximum 5% of the population, taking the entire resource of a space. So I can agree more with you. But beyond the unviable state is even the issue of the constitution and the system of government. Presidential system, that is executive arrangement of power as we have today, the architecture of it is cumbersome, is expensive, and it can never help in developing a viable polity. Never. So we must first of all review the system of government which we copied from America, and we are not in any way situating properly in our own space. A parliamentary system with a modified structure that will allow viable entities as federating units will do a lot of good for our nation. That's my response to your question. Aminu, I thank you for your expressions and honesty. Because others, rather than accept the truth, we still want to argue on what's unnecessary. Your charge to me is, what am I doing with the clear perspective I have? A lot. I've had to address twice the nation in Abuja on the perspective I'm advancing here today, and more elaborately. Each of the talk took about 2 hours, And what I spoke on was the need for the leadership of the North, first of all, to understand that there must be a change in the interpretation of Islam. That our religion does not promote the abuse of women and deny them the right to be productive, not only biologically, economically. And that if you don't do that, it will be difficult to overcome the regime of poverty that is virtually today the hallmark of Islam in our area. And I must tell you, when I said it, I received large or positive response from everybody. But I'm yet to see any conscious effort in that direction. I equally told the nation that if a Marshall Plan is desirable and timeous, it is now. And it should be geared towards giving job to all youth. If 20,000 would be high for all states, federal government should fund 10,000 per state, while each state must be made to fund 10,000 of youth engaged in public works. And that will go a long way in reducing the menace of youth restiveness. I can't do more than that. We keep on dialoguing, we keep on talking, keep on engaging one another. And why not saying I'm satisfied with the results? That's the best I can do. We've not left it to those who are today afflicted. As I've said here, I'm very conscious of the collateral effect. And I've not shied away from telling it the way I feel, that we have a challenge confronting all of us, which we must respond to collectively. Ideology. It's almost hackneyed, the word ideology. What have I been talking about? Because I've not said socialism? I don't know. I mean, we are talking ideology. You know, I use Keynesian. You know, the traditional belief is that it is through physical infrastructure development that you can empower the people. We are changing that in Osun. It's ideological. What we have not done is that we have not labeled it. And if you want me to label it, the label for my ideology is humanism. So I hope you're satisfied now. we are humanists. We are humanists. We put people first. Because we realize that whatever you do without putting the people first can never survive. It's unsustainable. And if you look at the performance of our government, the governments of our party, Action Congress of Nigeria, in Nigeria, is distinct and different. From Edo is not Yoruba state. From Edo to Lagos to Ogun, Oyo, Osun and Ekiti. These are the states we control. You will see a sharp difference in our pursuit of the welfare, freedom, economic progress of both the people and the land. And that is what we are taking to the national level. That is the core of the coalition that is coming up. We said, as of now, a group of governors, as at the last count, 11 of us, I want to assume, 11 of us, as crystallized. And in our statement to the public, we made it clear that we are not just seeking to change the people in power, we are committed to seeing that the Nigerian people have benefit of good leadership. So it is our effort, our drive, our zeal is to give to Nigeria and the people of Nigeria leadership that will make life more meaningful, more abundant, and very, very free. That's the definition of the ideology. Freedom for all, life more abundant.
Before we move forward, let me quickly take a few seconds while the governor will have some time to maybe drink some water to recognize a number of officials and guests who are connected with the institution and those who have come from Osun State. Ambassador and Mrs. Carrington, they're here with us. Welcome. Professor Akinwande from MIT. Thank you very much for coming. Professor Bayo Williams from Osun. Professor Gumodede, welcome. Dr. Annalisa Betucci, Dr. Laura Grillo, Senator Iyabo Obasanjo, Dr. Charles Akinola, Professor Ade Banwi from UC Davis, Mr. Cardoso, I've not seen.
It's not from Brazil, please.
Yeah, these are the members who are connected with Harvard, MIT, and those who have come with the governor. But I'm sure you also permit me to introduce my wife. So let's move forward and take 3 sets of questions. Yes? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would like to know your vision and project about taxation. And also if you have any plan to improve the power supply in your state. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I just want to welcome Your Excellency to Boston. My name is Ajibola Oshinubi from Egbeomo, Yoruba. As a participant in this experiment of democracy in Nigeria from its inception, what is your current assessment and what made you decide to going back to Awoism, going back to things that worked in the past? I say congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Good evening. We have a question online. Mr. Governor, what is your plan to harness the solid mineral resources of the state of Osun and use it as a revenue earner?
Thank you. Your question?
My name is Abdul Giyad Maya Lehike from Providence, Rhode Island. My question to Engineer Abdul-Rauf Aregbeshola, who like himself to be referred to as Ogbeni. He's been an engineer. What's your perspective as to why power supply is still not achievable in Nigeria?
Okay.
Nigeria is a producer of petroleum, crude oil, about the 5th or the 6th largest in the world. And virtually, before we even discovered that, we've had Kanji Dam as a source of our power supply before we start having the thermal stations. But yet, we've been talking about development. Where in the world can we achieve development without power? I believe if we are able to solve this problem and address it sincerely, we have been able to move 20 years that we have lost forward
in our quest for development. So in your perspective as an engineer, can you please tell us exactly what the problem is? Because we seem not to get the problem from outside. But since you are an insider, you might be able to give us a better perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah. Taxation and power supply. What's my take on taxation? You know, really, there is no other form of mobilizing revenue for government outside taxation in a normal polity. There is no other means. In fact, when I travel, long before I became a governor, the question I ask is, how does this space run? And I know, taking America as a case study, there is no allocation from anywhere to anybody, except there's a national disaster. Oh, sorry, unless there's an emergency that is taken as a national disaster. All that we have in Boston is a product of the human activity. And the communal services are run from the revenue derived from taxes paid by active, productive citizens. As good as that is, and as good as it sounds, it's absolutely impossible in a climate where almost 90% of the adults outside those working for government and industrial concerns, if and when you have industries, they are economically unviable. So how will a man who cannot even sustain himself pay tax? A man who is a liability to himself, how do you get him to pay tax? As nice as it sounds that every adult must pay tax, you can only tax a viable adult when the adult is even a liability to the state. How do you tax such adult? So, this was what we found on assumption of office. And to address that is why we put in place some programs that will urgently assist the individuals to be economically viable. The ORIP, particularly the ORIP, Osun Rural Enterprise Agriculture Program, is meant to, because 70% of our population are engaged in agriculture. Not agriculture as defined or as seen here, agriculture just for subsistence. To get them to make a living out of their engagement, we needed to clear land and expand their holding for farming. We needed to train them on modern farming technique. We needed to provide them with other inputs that will increase their yield. So we are the face of empowering the people to be economically viable to support the state. So what we are doing on taxation is less of overburdening the people with taxes, but plugging all leakages in the system that will deny government of its revenue. And I will give you an example. The courts. Whereas the intention of government is not to use the court to exploit the people, but the courts are there to receive fines from those who break the laws. So when your income from judiciary is being stolen by those who are supposed to get it for you, you are being bled. So I'm just giving you an example of that. So we have put in place system that will disallow such leakage. And several other income coming to the state that previous administrations would rather not even bother about, because it was not their concern really what they obtained from such sources. But because we know that we have an enormous task of rebuilding a battered economy, we have gone ahead to block all leakages in our revenue. And I must tell you, we met an income of between 200 and 300 million naira. I will speak in naira and just take it as figures. Don't bother about the value. Yes, don't bother about the value, because it does not matter, really. We met an income of between 200 and 300 million naira per month for the state, which we have grown to 700 million naira now. Not by taxation, not through direct taxation of any individual, but by just simply blocking the leakages. So we are committed to using this to empower our economy, strengthen the people to be economically viable. I don't know whether that answers your question, but that's what we are doing. We cannot afford to tax our people now because they are too weak and incapable of bearing that burden. Ajibola Oshinobi, I will answer your power question with his own. Ajibola Oshinobi of Yoruba descendant, Yoruba. Honestly, I thank you for your time and effort to be here. It's nice to know that our people are still committed to us. Please extend to them my warm appreciation of your presence. But your question is a little bit worrisome. Why? Do I have a choice? I don't have a choice. I think it's an American adage that if it's not bad, don't fix it. It's a popular American adage that if it's not bad, don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So I cannot agree more. It's axiomatic that you use that method that works. Awoism works, and that's why we are using it. Yeah, from the internet. What are my plans to harness solid mineral resources? In the first instance, I must tell you that the Nigerian system does not even permit the state to harness any solid mineral resource. So let's agree on that, because it's a basic fact. The Nigerian Constitution today does not permit the state to harness any mineral resource. But I will not be honest. If I stop at that, I will be dishonest. And I don't want to go away here with that attitude. My predecessors in office had used some method to obtain for my state licenses to prospect our solid mineral resources. But much as that is good, what is my capacity to utilize the licenses? It's not just enough to have the capacity to explore. What is important is your capacity to even do what you are licensed to do. So what we are looking for are investors who will partner with us. And I'm happy I'm here using this opportunity. I wouldn't want to use it because it might be an abuse. But I'm glad to have the opportunity through your question to tell the world that we have a lot of gold in commercial quantity in my state. And we are looking for investors, genuine investors, to join. And we have licenses for exploration. So we are looking for genuine investors to join us in prospecting the gold and taking maximum advantage of it to the benefit of our people and glory of God. Yeah, the Twitter person should, I hope he's listening. I like your name. Your name is very interesting. Mayaleke. I know the meaning. I don't know how many people understand it. Mayaleke is that do not move with the deceptive people. I like the name. And in the spirit of your name, in the spirit of your name, I want to respond to your question. That what do I honestly think is the problem of power supply? Honestly, the solution is leadership. It does not require an engineer to know his leadership. When I was in the college, I was taught the following about power. For information, I did power. And I know, I was taught that when you have what to call temporary peak load, you use thermal energy to supplement your requirement, because the power, so the thermal energy is about the most expensive form of energy. Because of the cost of it, you do not use it as a base power supply option, but you use it to take care of sudden demand of energy, which called peak load. I have to start here for you to know that I understand what I want to talk about. But in the case of Nigeria, where we even born with flare, the right word is flare, we flare the abundant natural gas we have to prevent environmental disaster. And one would have thought, with right leadership, what to simply do is supply gas, natural gas, to all the states through pipeline and allow them to generate energy. And that would have solved considerably, though the cost would have been high. But which is worse? Having expensive energy or not having energy at all? And it's worrisome that there's nobody to take this seemingly simple step. So again, it's not the power, as essential as it is, that is the problem. It's the leadership to take the right decision on how to eliminate power shortage. That is my position, sir. Thank you.
Well, we have to round up. I know you have a lot of questions, but permit me to raise my question.
Sir, do.
And it has to do with religion. And I've been talking to you lately about some of your speeches. And I also mentioned in my introduction that you are a man of ideas and also a man of action. I have a feeling that one of the major problems we have with religion is that we do not understand what religion is. That we often assume that the religion is basically functional. And we fail to recognize that religion is also a human institution. So the dichotomy between sacred and profane, they're together. So because of this wrong assumption that we all have as Nigerians, it is very hard for us to even imagine or believe that a pope or an imam can even commit sin. And so when they commit that, we are so disappointed, and that we kind of scramble and we don't know what to do with that. So it seems to me then that there's a need for a kind of a reorientation whereby we will put in place as a nation certain principles, certain institutions that will recognize that we are dealing with a highly, highly complex phenomenon called religion. And we must not assume that they are all holy men or holy women. Because the moment we do that, we make our people vulnerable to them. And this is precisely what is going on. Irrespective of the religious organizations or religious institutions. The second has to do with a particular Nigerian crisis. And I'm glad you are responding to it without even knowing that you are doing that. That in 1960, at the time of independence, the three religious traditions were recognized. The four sets of chairs established in West Africa and African institutions were chairs in African religion, not Christianity, not Islam. Because we recognize that these three triple heritage, as we call it, Islam, Christianity, and indigenous religion, come together. Somehow we have succeeded over the years to drop indigenous religion and to demonize it. And this is a tradition that harbors our culture and our values and morals. So those who are doing it in the name of Christianity and Islam, they know what they are doing. They are not stupid. But because we don't have a national policy that deals with that, we don't even understand what it means to, what nation building means. The situation is so bad that if we look at Nigerian history critically, say UCOR, those of us who did UCOR at the right time, and do what people now call UCOR, you can see how it has degenerated. At the time we did UCOR in 1975 and so on, religion was not allowed as a kind of an institution that was part of NYSC. A few years after that, as soon as they get to the camp, they start forming Corpus Muslim Pharmacy Association, Corpus Christian Medical District. In other words, we allow religion to disturb that experiment in nation building. I'm raising this question because you are a man of ideas. And we must wrestle with that as a nation. How do we do that? I don't want to reduce it to the leadership issue.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir. First of all, I use the word sir. The best word for you is a Yoruba word.
Your Excellency. No,
it's Egbon. Egbon summarizes how best to relate to him beyond the professorship. Egbon means superior. Superior. And that's the way to respond to this. Egbon. I agree with you partially, I disagree with you somehow. No, partially I agree, but I disagree somehow. And why? We do not understand the impact of economy on people without wanting to sound ideological here, leftist here. I want for to tell us that the human society is defined by the relations of production. You may agree with me, disagree with me. It is the kernel of every other engagements, interactions, and relationships. And I will illustrate with this. Park is not original, but I won't make any reference. I won't reveal the source, but it's not my original idea, but it's a good illustration. Organize a banquet with the best meals available. Pick the most sophisticated in academics, in the profession, in business, there. Let them feed themselves. You will see that they will be serving themselves. Oh, this is good. I tell you, let's eat it. And they will be behaving as if they have no selfish capacity. That same group, close the doors on them for a week if it's possible. Pack, before you close the door, pack the meals and close the door even for 3 days. Count, they are 10, count their numbers and throw to them after the 3rd day 10 huge loaves of bread. They will become savages. Some will take 3 and say, if you come near me, I will kill you. Some will have just a bit, and some will not have any. And nobody, because of their deprivation, none of them will be willing to share. Don't forget that some couple of days before they were sharing things, rub my back and rub your own. What I'm trying to say simply is that when there is no inequality, when there is normal condition, you hardly see this violence. Immediately life is threatened by whatever means. The innate nature of man for survival dominates. So what you call wrong manifestation of religion in our climb is a function of the total deprivation of majority of our people who now want to survive by all means, and the tool for survival and management of the crisis is religion. And that is why it's greatly abused. And again, if you want to now extend it further, we were in Nigeria, I was born in Nigeria. And I still met a situation of orderliness when we had the traditional Orthodox churches, churches and Orthodox Islam. When we had Baptists came very, very late with the Americans. When we had the Anglican, the Catholics, the Methodists, and African churches. You know, we have African church. I don't mean I don't mean, I want to use the word now that we. Yes, there's a, well, sorry, I couldn't get it. I don't mean the rural churches. There is a church that broke away from Anglican church to form African church. These churches accommodated one another first. Two, they were tolerant of every other expression of faith. Because what is religion? I mean, I'm not an academic. I'm not an intellectual in this field. You are a master. But to me, religion is a path to understanding God. So if the desire of the religionist is actually to have full knowledge of God, then we won't have any problem. But religion has been commercialized, particularly with the introduction of the I want to define it, of the mesmerizing, it's not mega, mesmerizing, sophisticated, psychedelic psychedelic brand of it. We are entertainers. Entertainers will actually envy the dexterity of the leaders of church organizations in their ability to mesmerize and dazzle their audience. So, and tragedy accompanied it. And the tragedy, I'm not naming anybody. The tragedy and disaster that accompanied such commercialized expression of faith is what we're talking about. And honestly, it's particularly sad for the Yorubas. It's particularly sad for the Yorubas because the Yorubas, and I want to say this here and to be quoted, the Yorubas particularly have a cosmogony that is totally averse to what we are witnessing now. Yorubas have always had multiplicity of faith. They may be traditional, but they are different. Obatala worship is different from Shango worship. It's different from Ogun worship. It's different from Oluwaye. They are not the same. They don't even wear the same dresses. They don't eat the same food. They are not served in the same way. And yet, we have never heard or read about any conflict between these different faiths. And that is why it's almost impossible for any genuine Yoruba man to fight on faith. It's not a newfound thing. That was our tradition. That the husband could be a Shango worshipper who will dress in red, and the wife will be an Obatala worshipper who will dress in white. And yet they live together. Completely in harmony. So where then did we inherit this tensed relationship on religion? It's even alien to us. So I may be wrong. But I want to believe that we must seek the solution for these wrong expressions and actions in the dislocation of our society, particularly economically. And that is why we need a leadership that will tower above these primordial sentiments and rally the people for serious production, because we must produce above all. We have an indolent elite that feed fat on the system, and to sustain their hold and benefit, they keep the people fighting among themselves. I rest my case.
I can see that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So we have a couple of rituals to perform before we leave. Before I go there, let me mention to you that March 12th, we are going to have among us Dr. Fayemi, the Executive Governor of Ekiti State, who will give a lecture here. And April 3rd, we will have Professor Ambali, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin, who will be here to speak on education. Let me call on the President of the Nigerian Student Association, the undergraduates, Olajumoke Odedele, to bring and read the governor's citation, which we were given today.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to read the citation.
Good, thank you.
From the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Honorable Obin Raoul Arabishola, on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we are pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation to commemorate your first visit to the Commonwealth in appreciation of your commitment to sustainable economic development and to furthering the partnership between the Commonwealth and the state of Osun. This 20th day of February in the year 2013, from Deval L. Patrick, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you very much.
This is lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm grateful.
Glad to have you.
I'm grateful. Once again,
Thank you very much.
God bless you. Yeah, it's Ogbeni.
Ogbeni.
So while you are still standing, on behalf of all our people here at Harvard, we'd like to present you this little token in appreciation of your visit. And we can't just express it in words, how grateful we are that you have come to be part of this project, and also you come to interact with your people. We do hope that in a few years to come, you will be in a position to occupy a leadership position, leadership status in Abuja, not just in Osogbo.
Thank you.
We are grateful.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
I will now call on Mr. Ogunaike to give the vote of thanks. Mr. Ogunaike, by the way, is a PhD student in the Department of African American and African Studies, who is specializing in comparative religion with a focus right now participate in your project.
Oh, the Ifa man.
So, Professor Olupona is absolutely right, sir. And you as well, sir, you are completely right. I can cite Ojufa for you that illustrate your point about Yoruba religious pluralism perfectly. Something I like to call comprehensive religion in my work. All of this thing it's very foreign to us, all of this religious violence. Even Islam was incorporated into the Yoruba cosmology without any trouble. So I thank you for that one. It was music to my ears, sir.
Thank you.
So on behalf of all the people here, the ones who are streaming the video feed live in the US and in Nigeria and everywhere else, I would like to offer this vote of thanks to you, sir, for the talk that you've just given us. But first and foremost, I would like to thank you for the incredible work you've done in Osun State. First and foremost, for the infrastructural work, for the construction, for the initiatives like OYES. But really, I would like to thank you for making Nigerians believe in their government again. As a Nigerian myself, going home, I can't stress to enough how prevalent the situation or the feeling of resignation often is when people begin discussing politics. So to begin speaking to people in Osun State and even in the US about how enthusiastic they are about what's happening on the ground in their state is really revolutionary. It's one of the greatest accomplishments I've seen in some time. So I would sincerely like to thank you for that. I would also like to thank you for presenting this talk on the challenges of development in Nigeria. In examining the comprehensive analysis you've given of the issue, I tried to write down all the different areas you addressed, and I was running out of space on my paper. You touched on issues of youth, education, government, gender, religion, technology, security, culture, so many different things, all in a very comprehensive way. And as Professor Lupana has said, it wasn't just ideas. You've given us discrete actions that you've already taken in 2.5 years of service. And upon hearing all of this, sir, I remember how excited I was when I was in Moraige, seeing everybody rejoicing when the announcement of the courts came out, instating you as the rightful governor of Osun State.
Thank you.
And I would also like to thank all the distinguished guests we have here. As Professor Lupana mentioned before, we have Senator Obasanjo, we have Dr. Akinola, we have Ambassador and Lady Carrington here, Mr. Cardozo, Professor Williams, Dr. Akinwande, so many people here, sir. And thinking about the challenges of development in Nigeria, the many challenges that face our country, with the ideas you've presented and the intellectual firepower we have in the room, I think the only thing that surpasses our challenges is the level of intellect and the level of commitment that I see represented here today. So on behalf of everyone here, everyone streaming, and the many citizens of Osun State and Massachusetts and Harvard in particular, so I'd like to thank you for your address tonight and all of the great work you've done and the work that we trust you will continue to do in the future. Thank you, sir.
Lovely. Thank you.
Do I present this to you?
Okay.
There's the body of the work I've done.
Oh, this is lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. I must equally hand over this to you as a memento of this.
Lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Ẹ ṣé o. Ọlọ́run á jẹ́ kó ṣeé ṣe o. Wá gbélé yìí. Ṣé o ti gbọ́ pọ́ ìmọ̀?
sign this?
Okay, bring the pen. Bring the pen.